Simple diagrammatic relationship. Simple diagrammatic relationship is a type of reasoning that involves using visual representation or diagrams to solve problems or understand relationships. This type of reasoning is often used in mathematics, science, and engineering, but it can also be applied to other fields. In simple diagrammatic relationship, the relationships between different elements or variables are represented using diagrams or visual representations. These diagrams can be used to show how different variables are connected or how they change over time. For example, a simple diagrammatic relationship could show how the temperature of a liquid changes as it is heated or cooled. A common example of simple diagrammatic relationship is a flowchart, which is used to represent a process of or procedure. Another example is a Venn diagram, which is used to show the relationships between different sets of data. A tree diagram is also a common example of simple diagrammatic relationship, which is used to represent the possible outcomes of a decision or event. To solve a problem using simple diagrammatic relationship, you first need to identify the variables or elements involved and determine how they are related. Then you can create a diagram or visual representation to show these relationships. You can use arrows, lines, circles, or other shapes to connect the different variables and represent the relationship between them. Then we need some tips and tricks like practice drawing and interpreting different types of diagrams such as flowcharts, Venn diagrams, and tree diagrams. Use color coding or different shapes to represent different variables or elements in your diagrams. Start with simple problems and gradually work your way up to more complex ones. Check your work by double checking your diagrams and making sure they accurately represent the relationship between the different variables or elements. In conclusion, simple diagrammatic relationship is an important tool for understanding relationships between variables or elements in a visual way. It can be used in a variety of fields and is particularly useful for solving complex problems and understanding processes or procedures. By understanding the procedure and following the tips and tricks, one can effectively use simple diagrammatic relationship to solve problems and make informed decisions. Then multi-diagrammatic relationship. Multi-diagrammatic reasoning involves analyzing and understanding complex relationship between multi-diagrams or sets of information. This type of reasoning is often used in fields such as science, engineering, and mathematics. Understanding how to approach and solve these types of problems can be useful for problem solving in many different areas. Multi-diagrammatic reasoning involves understanding the relationships between multiple diagrams or sets of information. The diagrams or sets of information may contain different types of data or symbols, and the relationships between them can be complex. The goal of multi-diagrammatic reasoning is to analyze and interpret these relationships in order to draw conclusions or make predictions. For example, as an example of multi-diagrammatic reasoning could involve analyzing the relationship between different variables in a scientific experiment. The experiment may involve multiple variables such as temperature, pressure, and volume, and each variable may be represented by a different diagram or set of data. By analyzing the relationships between different variables, it may be possible to draw conclusions about the overall behavior of the system. To approach multi-diagrammatic reasoning problems, it is important to first carefully examine and understand each diagram or set of information. Look for patterns and relationships between the different variables or data sets. Try to identify any similarities or differences between the different diagrams or sets of information. Use this information to create a mental map or model of the relationships between the different variables. Look for patterns and relationship between the different variables or data sets. Try to identify any similarities or differences between the different diagrams or sets of information. Use this information to create a mental map or model of the relationship between the different variables. Practice with a variety of different types of multi-diagrammatic reasoning problems to build your skills and familiarity with the process. Use visual aids or diagrams to help you create a mental map or model of the relationship between the different variables. Look for common patterns and relationships between different types of diagrams or sets of information and use this to guide your analysis. Be patient and persistent. Multi-diagrammatic reasoning problems can be complex, so it may take time and effort to fully understand and analyze the relationship between different variables. Next, Venn diagrams. Venn diagrams are a graphical representation of sets and their relationships. They are used to usually represent the and solve problems related to set theory and logic. Venn diagrams are composed of overlapping circles that represent sets and their relationship to each other. Venn diagrams are used to represent relationship between different sets. They consist of circles or ovals, where each circle represents a set and the overlapping region represents the intersection between the two sets. If there is no overlap between two sets, then the circles will be completely separate. Venn diagrams can be used to solve problems related to set theory, probability, and logic. Suppose there are two sets of animals, set A which consists of dogs and cats, and set B which consists of cats and birds. We can use a Venn diagram to represent the relationship between the sets. The circle for set A represents dogs and cats, and the circle for set B represents cats and birds. The overlapping region represents cats since they are in both sets. The non-overlapping regions represent dogs only in set A and birds only in set B. To create a Venn diagram, first identify the sets you want to represent. Draw a circle for each set and label it with the name of the set. If the sets have any elements in common, then overlap the circles to represent the intersection between the sets. Label the overlapping region with the elements that are common to both sets. Label the non-overlapping regions with the elements that are unique to each set. Use clear labels for each set and the overlapping regions to make the diagram easy to read and understand. If you have more than two sets to represent, use more circles and overlap them as necessary. Venn diagrams can be used to solve a variety of problems related to set theory, probability, and logic, so it's important to understand how to read and interpret them. Venn diagrams are an important tool in many fields, including mathematics, statistics, and computer science. By understanding how to create and interpret Venn diagrams, you can better understand the relationship between sets and solve problems related to set theory, probability, and logic. Next, analytical reasoning. Explanation examples related to analytical reasoning. Analytical reasoning is a type of logical reasoning that requires individuals to analyze and interpret data in order to draw conclusions or solve problems. This type of reasoning is commonly used in fields such as mathematics, science, and engineering, as well as in everyday life. Analytical reasoning involves breaking down complex information into smaller parts, examining the relationship between those parts, and using that analysis to draw conclusions or solve problems. It often involves the use of charts, graphs, or other visual aids to help individuals visualize the relationship between different pieces of information. An example of analytical reasoning might involve a scientist analyzing data from an experiment to determine whether a new drug is effective in treating a particular disease. The scientists would need to carefully examine data, looking for patterns or trends, and using that analysis to draw conclusions about the drug's effectiveness. The procedure for analytical reasoning typically involves several steps. This might include identifying the problem or question that needs to be solved, gathering data or information related to the problem or question, breaking down the data into smaller parts or categories. Identify the problem or question that needs to be solved, gathering data or information related to the problem or question, breaking down the data into smaller parts or categorizing, analyzing the relationship between the different parts of categories, using that analysis to draw conclusions or solve the problem. Here are some tips and tricks to improve analytical reasoning skills. Practice breaking down complex information into smaller parts. Practice identifying problems or trends in data. Use visual aids such as charts or graphs to help you analyze data. Ask questions to clarify information or relationship between different pieces of information. Practice solving problems using analytical reasoning techniques. Analytical reasoning is an important skill that can be applied in many different areas of life. It is particularly useful in fields such as science, mathematics, and engineering, where complex data must be analyzed and interpreted to make decisions or solve problems. By improving your analytical reasoning skills, you can become a more effective problem solver and decision maker in many different areas of your life. Next, data interpretation. Data interpretation is a critical aspect of reasoning that helps in comprehending data and using it to arrive at conclusions. This process involves analyzing and interpreting data into graphs, charts, and other means to gain insights and make informed decisions. Data interpretation is used in various fields such as business, finance, healthcare, and education. It helps individuals and organizers to make sense of large amounts of data and draw meaningful conclusions. The procedure for data interpretation includes the following steps like read the data. The first step in the data interpretation is to carefully read the given data, understand the information provided, and try to identify the key points and important details. Understand the format. The format of the data provides many the format of the data provided may vary, such as tables, graphs, or charts. Understand the format and how to interpret the data presented in that particular format. Analyze the data. Analyze the data provided by using various techniques such as calculating percentages, averages, ratios, and identifying trends. Draw conclusions. Use the analyzed data to draw meaningful conclusions that can be used for decision making purpose. Consider the following data sets representing the sales figures of a company over 5 years. You can see the data. Using the data representation, we can identify that the company has been experiencing consistent growth sales over the past 5 years with an average growth rate of 20%. This information can be used to forecast future sales figures and make informed business decisions. Pay attention to the details. Read the data carefully and pay attention to the details provided. Even a small detail can make a significant difference in interpreting the data accurately. Understand the context. Understand the context of the data provided, such as the industry, market, or demographic. Identify the trends. Identify any trends or patterns in the data provided, such as upward or downward trends. Use appropriate techniques. Use appropriate data analysis techniques to interpret the data accurately, such as calculating percentages or ratios. Data interpretation is an essential skill in today's data driven world, and mastering this skill can help individuals and organizers make informed decisions based on data driven insights. Data sources. Data sources refers to the different ways or means by which data is collected or obtained for analysis. There are various types of data sources available, and the choice for the appropriate data source depends on the nature of the research questions and the objectives of the study. In this essay, we will discuss in detail the different types of data sources and their characteristics. Primary data sources. Primary data sources refer to the data that is collected by the researcher directly from the source. This data is collected for a specific purpose, and the researcher has complete control over the collection process. The following are the different types of primary data sources, like surveys. Surveys involve collecting data from a sample of individuals or groups through questionnaires or interviews. Surveys can be conducted in various forms, such as mail surveys, telephone surveys, online surveys, etc. Next, observations. Observations involve directly observing and recording the behavior of individuals or groups in natural settings. This method is useful when the researcher wants to understand the behavior of individuals or groups in a particular setting. Then experiments. Experiments involve manipulating one or more variables to observe the effect on the outcome variable. This method is useful when the researcher wants to establish cause and effect relationship. Next, focus groups. Focus groups involve bringing together a group of individuals to discuss a particular topic or issue. This method is useful when the researcher wants to understand the attitude and opinions of individuals towards a particular issue. Then, secondary data focus. Secondary data sources. Secondary data sources refer to the data that has already been collected by someone else for a different purpose. The following are the different types of secondary data sources, like government publications. Government publications such as census reports, economic reports, and other statistical reports can provide a wealth of data that can be used to represent research purposes. Academic publications. Academic publications such as journals and research papers can provide data that has already been analyzed and can be used for further research. Then commercial data sources. Commercial data sources such as market research reports. Academic publications. Academic publications such as journals and research papers can provide data that has already been analyzed and can be used for further research. Then commercial data sources. Commercial data sources such as market research reports, industry reports, and other commercial databases can provide data that is useful for business research. Then internet sources. Internet sources such as social media, blogs, and forums can provide data on the attitudes and opinions of individuals towards a particular topic. Next, advantages of using data sources. Time saving. Using data sources saves time as the data is already available and the researcher does not need to spend time collecting the data. Then cost effective. Using data sources is cost effective as the researcher does not need to spend money on collecting data. Accuracy. Data sources provide accurate data as the data has already been collected and analyzed by someone else. Wide range of data. Data sources provide a wide range of data that can be used for research purposes. Then disadvantages of using data sources. Data may not be relevant. Data sources may provide data that is not relevant to the current research question. Limited control over the data. The researcher has limited control over the data as it has already been collected by someone else. Data may be biased. Data sources may provide biased data, which may affect the validity of the research findings. Data may be outdated. Data sources may provide data that is outdated, which may affect the validity of the research findings. Importance of data sources in day-to-day life. Data sources are essential in day-to-day life as they provide information that can be used to make informed decisions. For example, when buying a car, a person can use data sources such as car reviews, ratings, and reports to make an informed decision on a best car to buy. In addition, data sources such as weather reports and news reports can provide information that can be used to plan daily activities. In conclusion, data sources are crucial. Then, acquisition and interpretation of data. Acquisition and interpretation of data are important steps in the process of conducting research or analysis. It involves collecting relevant data from various sources and analyzing the data to draw meaningful insights and conclusions. In this essay, we will discuss the procedures, tips, and tricks for acquiring and interpreting data, along with examples. Then, acquisition of data. Identify the research question or objective. The first step in acquiring data is to clearly define the research question or objective. This will help in identifying the relevant data sources and methods for collecting data. Determine the data source. Once the research question or objective is identified, determine the sources of data that will be used to answer the question. There are several data sources, including primary sources, surveys, interviews, observations, and secondary sources like published reports, journals, government data, etc. Collect the data. After identifying the data sources, collect the data using appropriate methods. This may involve conducting surveys or interviews, observing a phenomenon, or collecting data from published resources. Check for data quality. This is important to check for the quality of the data collected. This involves checking for accuracy, completeness, and consistency of the data. If necessary, data cleaning may be required to remove any inconsistencies or errors. Then, interpretation of data. Analyze the data. Once the data is collected and checked for quality, the next step is to analyze the data. This involves organizing the data and applying statistical techniques to draw meaningful conclusions from that data and identify patterns and trends. Look for patterns and trends in the data that can help in answering the research question or objective. This may involve using graphs, charts, or tables to visualize the data. Then draw conclusions. Based on the analysis, draw conclusions that answer the research question or objective. It is important to ensure that the conclusions are supported by the data and are not biased. Use appropriate methods for data collection. The methods used for data collection should be appropriate for the research question or objective. Check for data quality. This is important to check for data quality to ensure that the analysis is based on accurate and reliable data. Use appropriate statistical techniques. The appropriate statistical techniques should be used to analyze the data. Look for patterns and trends. Visualizing the data using graphs, charts, or tables can help in identifying patterns and trends. A research study aims to understand the factors that influence consumer behavior towards purchasing products. The researcher decides to conduct surveys to collect data from consumers. The data collected is then analyzed using statistical techniques to identify patterns and trends that can help in drawing conclusions. An organization is interested in understanding the performance of its employees. The organization collects data from various sources, including employee surveys and performance evaluations. The data is then analyzed using statistical techniques to identify areas of improvement and draw conclusions about the overall performance of the employees. In conclusion, acquiring and interpreting data is an important step in conducting research or analysis. It involves identifying relevant data sources, collecting and checking the quality of the data, and analyzing the data to draw meaningful insights and conclusions. It is important to use appropriate methods and statistical techniques and to ensure that the conclusions are supported by the data and are not biased. Next, quantitative and qualitative data. Qualitative data are two types of data that are commonly used in research and analysis. Quantitative data refers to numerical data that can be measured and analyzed using statistical methods, while qualitative data refers to non-numerical data that is descriptive in nature and is usually analyzed using subjective methods. Quantitative data is typically collected through surveys, experiments, and other methods that involve measuring and analyzing numerical data. This type of data is often used in scientific research and business analysis to identify patterns and trends, make predictions, and draw conclusions based on statistical analysis. Examples of quantitative data include income, age, height, weight, and test scores. Then, qualitative data, on the other hand, is collected through observations, interviews, and other methods that involve the collection of non-numerical data. This type of data is often used to gain insight into human behavior, attitudes, and experiences, and is often analyzed using subjective methods. Examples of quantitative and qualitative data include text, images, audio recordings, and video footages. Then, procedure. When collecting and analyzing quantitative data, it is important to use precise measurement tools and methods to ensure accuracy and reliability. This may involve using standardized tests, surveys, or other instruments that have been validated for use in research. When collecting and analyzing qualitative data, it is important to use methods that allow for rich and detailed information to be collected. This may involve conducting interviews or focus groups, making observations, or using other qualitative research methods that allow for in-depth exploration of a particular topic or phenomenon. Clearly define your research question or objective before collecting any data. Select the appropriate methods and tools for collecting and analyzing the type of data you need. Ensure that your data collection methods are reliable and valid. Use appropriate software or tools to analyze and interpret your data. Always keep in mind the limitations and potential biases of your data. In conclusion, qualitative and quantitative data are two important types of data used in research and analysis. By understanding the characteristics and methods associated with each type of data, researchers and analysts can collect and analyze data more effectively and draw more accurate conclusions. ICT, Communication and Information and Communication Technology, refers to the use of digital technologies to access, process, store, and communicate information. It encompasses a range of technologies such as computers, the internet, mobile devices, softwares, and hardwares. ICT has transformed the way we live, work, and communicate and has become an integral part of modern society. In this essay, we will discuss the nature, characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages of ICT and its importance in our daily lives. The nature of ICT is dynamic and ever-changing. It is a rapidly evolving field with new technologies and innovations being developed constantly. ICT is characterized by its ability to process vast amount of data quickly and effectively, as well as its ability to connect people and systems across the globe. It is also characterized by its versatility, as it can be used for a wide range of applications including education, business, healthcare, entertainment, and more. One of the major advantages of ICT is its ability to improve communication and connectivity. ICT has revolutionized the way we communicate, making it faster, easier, and more efficient than ever before. With the advent of social media platforms, people can connect with each other across the globe in real time, allowing for instant communication and collaboration. Additionally, ICT has enabled the development of online learning and training, which has made education more accessible to people around the world. ICT has also had a significant impact on the business world, enabling organizations to streamline their operations and increase efficiency. With the use of software and digital tools, businesses can automate many of their processes, reducing the need for manual labor and increasing productivity. ICT has also enabled the development of e-commerce, which has transformed the way we buy and sell goods and services. Despite its many advantages, ICT also has some disadvantages. Some of the major drawbacks is its potential to create a digital divide between those who have access to technology and those who do not. This can create social and economic inequalities, as those without access to ICT may be left behind in terms of education, employment, and other opportunities. Additionally, ICT can also be a source of distraction and addiction, particularly in young people. In conclusion, ICT has become an essential part of our day to day lives, transforming the way we communicate, work, and learn. Its advantages include improved communication and connectivity, increased efficiency and productivity, and greater access to education and information. However, it is important to be aware of its potential drawbacks, such as the digital divide and the risk of addiction. As technology continues to evolve, it is important that we strive to use it in a responsible and ethical manner and ensure that everyone has access to its benefits. It refers to the use of electronic devices and computer technologies to access, process, and communicate information. It's a combination of communication technology and information technology. Advantages include improved communication, enhanced learning, increased productivity, easier access to information, better healthcare. Disadvantages include dependency. Then security issues will be there, cyberbullying like consequences. Then health issues. The prolonged use of digital devices can lead to health issues such as eye strain, neck pain, and back pain. This can affect the overall health of the individual. Increased cost. Uses in education, business, healthcare, and entertainment field.